Okay, I think we are getting very close to being able to sort of close the door, proverbially, and maybe at some point a literal door, on MyPillow CEO and founder Mike Lindell. He actually, quote, testified before the Louisiana Senate committee looking at, I guess, voter fraud. It's the Voting System Commission. They were exploring voter fraud. And he very quickly imploded and tried to cite some kind of weird data that he has access to, which proves, based on an investigation of votes that he did, that it's all fraudulent and Trump won or whatever. And the thing you have to remember is, does he even have aside from does the data or do the data show what he claims? Does Pillow even have access to such data? And it's not a question we actually have an answer to, but here's a little bit of his testimony, for lack of a better term.
Last thing I'll say is our overseas votes. This is where they were going to. And when you say computers, you want to know the next era? Email and texting in your vote.
Right.
Now you say that could never happen, right? All of our military votes, almost 97% were emailed in from overseas and their families. All of them that we found so far were for Biden. And that's our overseas military.
Yeah. So that's a pretty big claim.
We're doing a class action lawsuit against all machines.
Yeah. Okay. So what does he mean by investigated votes? Since he doesn't really have access to that information, but this is not a new claim. The claim that he's making is we've investigated overseas votes and they were all for Biden, which doesn't make sense. It just doesn't, that you would expect to see some Trump votes. This has been claimed before. The claim is specific to Georgia, and it's, if you look at Georgia military overseas ballots, they were all for Biden, and thus it's evidence of voter fraud. This was widely investigated early in 2021. This conspiracy theory website called the Gateway Pundit made a similar claim, saying, quote, in Georgia, a sample, now this is a key word, a sample of military ballots were reviewed recently and all went for Joe Biden. There's no way these were legit. So the first question is it true that all the overseas military ballots in Georgia were for Biden? And the answer is no. Notice that the Gateway Pundit uses this phrase, a sample of overseas ballots. This was investigated, and what they found is that there are some batches of votes that were all Biden votes. So, for example, there was a batch of 130 ballots. Those were all Biden. And there's a reason for that. They had already been sorted by candidate. So think about the way that this worked. The ballots come in, massive dumps of ballots, as all of you guys know about. You go, okay, we're going to put the Biden ballots in one box, and we're going to put the Trump ballots in another box. So you sort them, and you've got a box of all Biden ballots. You hand that box to someone to review, and they go, hey, every single one of these is for Biden. It must be fraud, as they like to say. Well, no, it's just they were correctly sorted, and you're looking at a Biden box of ballots. So it makes sense that if they were correctly sorted, that they would all be Biden. The Georgia Secretary of State's office did a hand recount of those. They were able to, quote, uphold and reaffirm the original outcome. There were two other audits done of Georgia's results, including looking at 15,000 absentee ballots. There was no evidence of widespread fraud. If I do an initial sort and it's correct, and then you review the sort, you would anticipate that you would have a large tranche of Trump boxes and a large tranche of Biden boxes. That's all that happened here. And the claims are now starting to be they've always been absurd, but the claims are now so transparently toothless. There's nothing there. That my expectation is in the next 4 months, particularly as we get closer to the midterms, that the Pillow stuff is going to wind down. Once you're beyond the midterms, and even the people who believe this stuff are starting to think, you know, Mike, it might not all be just about to come out in a blockbuster way. I think you'll see a dramatic reduction in the amount we hear from Pillow. I could be wrong, but at least that's me optimistically thinking.